Don't you hear me, people, when I say, well, let's all do something good today.
Hey y'all, welcome to Dad Does Dinner. Today I'm making homemade chorizo, and that will be the primary ingredient in my chorizo stuffed peppers that I'm going to do later in this week. This dish was inspired by something that Mike did over at One Arm Brewing and Barbecue in San Angelo, Texas. If you haven't checked out his YouTube channel, head on over there. He makes really good food with big, bold flavors that people love to eat. Types of chorizo vary widely. There's the Spanish style of chorizo that's heavy on the paprika. It's stuffed into casings and it's smoked to a hardened consistency. It can be spicy or sweet. Latin America has their own take on chorizo, and today mine will be more of the Mexican style of chorizo, made with fresh ground pork, chili powders, coriander, cumin, and then a slight nod to the Spaniards with the smoked Spanish paprika. Mexican chorizo tends to be on the spicy side, and that's just how I like it. I'll start it by sauteing some peppers, onions, and garlic, adding to it the spice blend, a little bit vinegar, mixing that all up in the blender, and then adding that to my fresh ground pork. Let's go inside and see how the sausage is made. No humans were ground in the making of this sausage. I start with a couple of tables of bacon grease over medium-high heat. Olive oil or canola oil will work here too. A poblano pepper, a whole onion, a whole jalapeno with the seeds and membrane left in, about a teaspoon of salt, and saute for about 3 minutes. After about 3 minutes, add a half a clove of garlic. Just when that garlic starts to become fragrant, add a 1/4 cup of red wine vinegar. Add a whole chipotle, remove as many of the seeds as you can, add your spice blend, 2 tablespoons of ancho chili powder, a teaspoon of coriander, almost a teaspoon of crushed red pepper, 2 tablespoons of Spanish smoked paprika, 2 tablespoons of chipotle chili powder, a half teaspoon of cinnamon, half teaspoon of cracked black pepper, 2 teaspoons of cumin. Whisk together and warm over low heat until just fragrant. Because you've watched so many of my videos, you know that I often say toast your spices. In actuality, what I should be telling you to do is to warm your spices. When you warm your spice, it brings out the natural oils in it and it intensifies the flavor of the spice and helps the spice taste more like itself. Toasting is actually a different process. If you're going to toast a spice, then you're going to take the whole grain of the spice, you're going to toast that, get a brown on it, and then put that into your spice grinder. Toasting spices can bring out different flavors, can change the flavor of a spice. For example, a spice like cardamom, which has a really distinct perfumey flavor, which sometimes is a little bit unpleasant, if you toast that whole grain, it mellows out that spice because it's changing the chemical properties of the spice. So, warm your spices if they're pre-ground. If you want to try toasting them, then get the whole grain of the spice and toast it until it's just slightly brown, and then grind it yourself. Note that spices toast at different times, so you always want to toast spices separately. You can warm spices all together. A 1/4 cup of water, stir to combine. When it all comes together and has a paste-like substance, remove from the heat. Add your paste-like mixture into a blender and blend until smooth. You may find you need to add a little water to the blender to smooth things out. You want this kind of consistency. I added a half cup of water as I was blending to achieve this. For the sausage, I've cut up 2.5 pounds of picnic cushion meat into about 1.5 inch pieces that'll fit well in my grinder. Pork picnic cushion meat is basically the large trimmings of meat that come when a butcher is trimming up a picnic shoulder. I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt to it. Remember, we added a teaspoon of salt into our spice paste mix. So that's 2 teaspoons of salt in this recipe. Grinding your own meat, of course, is not a required step in this process. Kroger had this on sale for 79 cents a pound, so I said, heck, why not? I like to grind my own meat when I have the inclination, because that way I know exactly what's going into my ground meat. Any part of the pork shoulder is good for grinding sausage because it's got a real good fat to meat ratio. You're looking for about a 75 to 25% meat to fat ratio on this. So I'm gonna grind my meat, and as I grind it, I'm gonna add pieces of cilantro and fresh oregano to the grind. I'm also gonna add my spice paste to the grind. If you're using pre-ground meat for this, then layer in your meat mixture, your spice paste mixture, in 2 to 3 layers, and then mix thoroughly. So everything is well incorporated. Look at the color on this. Now you want to cover and refrigerate for a minimum of 2 hours. It's better if it goes a full 24 hours. The chorizo's in the fridge, and the longer it sits, the better it gets. Got to give a quick shout out to Guy Fieri and Bobby Flay. Both of those guys are in my living room virtually daily, and I borrowed heavily from them for this recipe. As always, got to give a quick shout out to Mike and the crew at One Arm Brewing and Barbecue in San Angelo, Texas. That's a mini micro brewery and barbecue joint with their all-you-can-eat endless sausage platter. That homemade chorizo is going to be the featured ingredient in my stuffed peppers later this week, so make sure to tune in to that episode. And to everybody else out there, do something good for somebody else. We'll see you next time.
Spread a little love before your chance is gone.